NACA family, many of our members are unfortunately being manipulated by the campaign teams through the use of anonymous forums. They're here. They're clearly going to be part of the campaign season. So let's just get them out in the open and talk about them. They have decided to make a concerted effort to derive false narratives to divide our union in order to win a position. This has come up also because people are scared to utter the word extension in fear of not being elected, when the actual way to lead is by having the conversations, whether they're difficult or not, and educating the members. The anonymous medias have become a way to deflect blame. Our members have been adamant about transparency in their union and about not putting political spin on things. And our campaign has been committed to that as well. So let's just cut to it and be clear. The National Executive Board did not vote to extend the CBA Slate Book until 2029. But in order to have that conversation, we need to start with some education and background about why we're talking about this right now. So, Jamal?
Yeah, why are we even talking about an extension in 2024 when the CBA runs through 2026? Well, we now know who the candidates for President of the United States are. And one of those candidates was previously the President of the United States of America. He did impose executive orders that were aimed at crushing the ability for federal sector unions to operate. That's just a fact. I don't think there's any contention on that, and any serious candidate for these offices would be clear about that. Well, what exactly was in those orders, and why should it matter to the membership? Well, one of the orders called for developing effective and efficient cost-reducing approaches to federal sector collective bargaining. Why should you care about that? One of the key points in that was the order prohibited agencies from bargaining on permissive subjects of bargaining. What is a permissive subject of bargaining, and how does that matter to you? Was things like our annual leave, BWS, our dress code, ATSAP protections. In short, it would take our CBA from about 125 articles that are meant to protect and provide for our members down to around 40. Another key tenet of the executive orders was to promote accountability and streamline removal procedures. Streamlining removal procedures included agencies not being required to use progressive discipline. Agencies also not being prohibited from removing employees simply because they didn't remove an employee for comparable conduct. How would it look if the agency did have the ability to remove employees simply because they wanted to? Imagine going to work, coming 5 minutes late and being told that you're removed. Imagine having an operational error and being told you're removed and seeing that a fellow coworker was not removed just a week ago. These are not horror stories. These are truths that can happen under these executive orders.
This was a conversation that wasn't derived by Jamal and I, right? This was taught to us in the last administration. Rich, Mick, they went out and spoke about these draconian executive orders, what would happen if they were in place when a contract was to open. And that means opening it to negotiate, those laws become in effect. And this has been an ongoing conversation amongst the NEB of what to do with the Slate Book in the face of an anti-union and anti-federal employee presidency.
Keep this in mind. The executive orders that were in place were specifically designed to bankrupt any federal sector union once they went into contract negotiations. But while still under a contract, the union was somewhat insulated from the executive orders.
So now that you have some background on understanding just a small sampling of what those executive orders were meant to do, the Slate Book, as Jamal said, is up to be negotiated in 2026. That's in the next United States president's term. So that has to play a factor. And recently, it was discussed to pursue a limited reopener with the agency to go in and negotiate now. And the agency did decline that due to negotiating several other contracts, and that they would wait until 2026 to negotiate a replacement to the Slate Book. However, the FAA administrator did go to the NACA president and state that an extension is plausible. He told Rich, and Rich told the administrator that if they were going to discuss an extension, we wanted to talk to the National Executive Board. Those discussions lasted over 2 different meetings, multiple days, several hours in length. And one of the things that we were adamant about is we wanted to find out what all the options were. Could we delay further and wait until we get closer to a presidential election, or even after the presidential election, and then make that agreement prior to the opening period for the contract? However, Rich told us, the National Executive Board, that he did not feel he could delay any longer, that if called to question, he needs to answer this. So that's what our conversation revolved around. We did ask for a detailed analysis from our government affairs department, along with other political consultants, on what the current political landscape looks like. But that means the question still remains. What if the extension window closed while we're waiting for decision-making data points to be brought forward? So the NEB provided the president of NACO, which he asked for some level of guidance. We said that guidance would be, if he faced an imminent deadline situation, to extend the contract into 2028 only if we have the ability to reopen in 2026 via mutual agreement, just like we do now. If we have the ability to negotiate in 26, we would then lose nothing. The actual language of that motion was, absent the ability to delay the decision, extend to 2029 with the ability to open in 2026 by mutual agreement. That doesn't mean it automatically happens. That's the direction that we gave our president to go and work with the administrator on. And that gives that flexibility of saying to open the slate book as planned, or to cover us through the full term of an anti-union, anti-federal employee presidency, if those previously utilized executive orders are in effect and we cannot work our way into a good faith negotiation.
Under normal circumstances, this wouldn't even be an area of contention. Nick and I aren't afraid of speaking directly to the membership and talking about doing the right thing. The right thing is to protect our members when we have the opportunity. You know, when you have 13,000 or so air traffic controllers and their families on the line in these negotiations, you can't take this lightly, and you can't play politics with it. But you don't have to take our word for it. You know, Rich and Mick are both on record several times in the past speaking about the executive orders and the effect that they would have if we were to negotiate a CBA during that time. Mick has put out a video previously where he stated that he did think that the extension was the right thing to do in 2021 because the executive orders were in place, and it would have been unwise to negotiate under those executive orders.
So seeking a way around the executive orders and getting an extension past the second term was the best strategy.
Rich has said it several times. If you know Rich and have been around him when he gives his speech, he brags about his meetings with Hakeem Jeffries and the difficult conversations that he's had to have. What would happen in the event that it looks like the current administration wasn't going to win? He said several times that he will protect this union and extend the CBA that we currently have. Again, it's not about being afraid. It's about doing the right thing for the people that we represent. Our team, Team NDJH, has said, if the rules are fair, we are confident in our ability to move the ball forward and increase compensation, employee movement, all things that are important to our membership. But if executive orders are in place, we don't have the bravado to say we're going to open a CBA just simply to open a CBA and potentially do uncorrectable harm to this union. You don't have to take our word for it. They've said it. We will append documents that show that they've said it several times in the past, and we'll show you what we intend to do as well.
Last week, our RVP Mick Devine hosted a town hall for the New England region. NACA President-elect Rich Santa joined us on the call and answered a few questions from members. A question was also raised about our contract and what he would like to see. Rich believes that while there is always room for improvement, our current Slate Book contract is an excellent one and would like to see a longer-term extension of it for our members. From RVP Brian Schallenberger, Eastern Region. Great news on the Slate Book extension.
Rich said, "We believe extending this CBA is a great accomplishment for the covered members and our union. This MOU will provide stability for the workforce, ensure continued collaboration to modernize the NAS, and provide the traveling public with the safest air transportation system in the world."
This was in that National Executive Board meeting called out several times. It was said by many RVPs, this is simply a political move to get somebody else to go up and speak about extending the contract. So that way it can't come back on them. Think about the reality of what's happening, why it's going on. And here's one of the things that you'll never get from Jamal and I. Being scared to go out and do the right thing and then simply have the conversation with the members about the why. We didn't want to just extend. We wanted to correct what happened last time during an extension and still give ourselves the ability to negotiate this time. That's the win-win that protects all of you. And yet it's going to be put in a different political frame just to try to win an election, and don't fall for it.
The last thing that I'll say on the subject is Rich Santa's been president since 2021, September of 2021. In 2022, he didn't put forward the proposal to open the CBA. In 2023, he didn't put forward a proposal to open the CBA. Mick Devine has been on the National Executive Board since 2018.
We didn't need 4 years. I think it should have been 1 year.
Again, CBA extended in 2021. He didn't put forward a proposal in 2022 nor 2023. When you take your cues from anonymous message boards, you might put the rest of us in harm's way. We remain dedicated to doing the right thing by this union, not about ourselves, not for personal gain, but because we are union representatives and we will always take that seriously. Thank you for your time. We know that this was long. We promise you that we wouldn't inundate you with videos, and we hope that you appreciate that.
Talk to you soon.
As candidate for office, I have the liberty to be more candid.